Hi, everybody. I hope that we're starting at the right time because I am here unchaperoned. Sam G has abandoned me today, and so I'm by myself. Sam G. Oh, you can hear that. Let's turn that off. All right. You guys aren't going to let me do this without him again, are you? I wouldn't either. All right, today we have a very special guest. I'm really excited. She's a very, very good friend of mine. She's on our marketing committee at Kentwood. But before we get to her, I've got a few important announcements. I'd just like to leave you on the edge of your seat. For starters, the market masks are Saturday. What? So 5 p.m. If you haven't already done your RSVP at vp@kentwoodplayers.org. And then directly following, we have the red carpet after party hosted by Mama Lou Soul and I'm a Hot Mess. That's going to be amazing. Very excited for both of those. I'm on the edge of my seat. And then also Sam wanted me to make sure, I'm looking to make sure the date's right, that we Little Renegade Productions of She Kills Monsters is going to be September 26th and 27th. Yay! And he is in that. So you want to make sure and get more information. We're going to have all the postings and everything on that. You're not going to want to miss this. It's going to be fantastic. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my dear friend, Glory Bamubile Tshimanga. Oh, I said that wrong. Bamubile Tshimanga.
Hi. Hey, everyone.
I'm so glad you're joining us.
I am too. I've really never been interviewed before.
What? Really?
But besides like a job interview, like not anything like this before. So
yeah. Hey, maybe this is a job. You never know who's watching.
You actually, you know what? Yes. I like that. Yes.
You never know. I am super excited to speak with you because yes, I love you. Yes, we're friends. Yes, we hang out. Yes, all the above. But I learned today there is so much I don't know. And so I'm really excited to get into this. I think this has been a fun, starting KB Live has been really fun because sometimes we just talk shop and we kind of forget, we're like full rounded humans. We're not actors. So
that's true. That's funny.
Yeah. So this is going to be a real treat. I am super excited. I've got a bunch of different technical things happening real quickly. I'm going to fix. Sorry about that. It was very distracting. I had like 19 different videos. I need Sam back. So Glory, talk to me about your life, where you grew up. I feel like you grew up here in Southern California, correct?
No, I actually.
What do I know? Ignore me.
I was actually born in the DC area. My family's first-generation American, and so the first place that they landed was in the DC area. So my parents met. So I lived there. I didn't grow up there. A very short amount of time. I think we moved to Florida when I was like 6 months old.
Oh.
And then I grew up in Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, and I lived there until I was about 19, and then I moved here 3 years ago.
Just in time to escape things in Florida.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking when I left, is that, in the future there's going to be a pandemic, and I know that this state is going to be horrific during it, so I have to get out now.
Yeah, let me get out. Though I do have to say, you probably know for the past 3 years, it's not being run super well.
No, I already knew that. Yeah.
Not being run super well. No, I don't want to hate on Florida. I've got family in Florida, and lots of family in Florida. I love Florida, actually. It's a great place. And they've got Disney World.
Disney World.
So, do you mind if I ask where your parents are from?
My parents are from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So, like the former Zaire. People who don't know where that is, DRC. pretty much, if you look at the
middle
map of Africa, it's pretty much dead center.
Dead center.
The biggest map, dead center. Yeah. Biggest country, dead center is where my parents are from.
That's cool. But you said they met in DC.
Yeah, they met here. My parents were actually born in the same city and everything. But my dad grew up there. My mom traveled the world because my grandfather was a diplomat.
Gotcha.
So she got to travel the world.
Gotcha.
And they met in DC. Yeah.
I always love when you hear stories because that is a common thing where you hear people grew up in the same town or were born in the same place, like blocks away, never met, moved to some remote location, and then meet and fall in love.
Yeah, they met here. Yeah.
I love it. Yay, that's super cool. So amidst all of this, at what point in time in your life did you find the wonderful world of acting and theater?
I would say I was in middle school, so about 6th grade. I always loved singing. It first started with that. Like, singing was a thing that I did my whole life. My mom would say that I would sing before I could talk. Like, I would watch The Sound of Music every day as a kid. That long, almost 4-hour movie every day.
My word.
And then it was in middle school where I grew up in a Christian religious family, and so we would go on a retreat to this Christian camp, arts camp in Tennessee. And it was like, so these people created a show and we put on the production of it, and it was my first time ever actually like really acting as a character on stage and singing, and I kind of really fell in love with that because, like, in elementary school we did little shows here where, like, I was a bumblebee or a firefly, and I loved that. But this was like my first time doing the whole costume change, stage lights, makeup, all of that, and I fell in love with it. And like literally the rest, and that was kind of, well, I would say that was kind of the first seed. It wasn't until I was in high school and in choir we did like a study of Les Mis, where it really was like, it like fueled the fire. Yeah. Where like the camps in middle school were kind of like that first step to get into theater.
What was it about that experience? Can you name it? Can you name what the thing was that you were like, I need more of this in my life?
It felt like this is where I belong. Mm-hmm. You know? And I had a lot of fun just learning songs and dancing. Like, I had a lot of fun with my friends learning these things. And then I realized, I'm kind of good at this, you know? Yeah. And I think a lot of it still comes from just singing. Like, I love to sing. So in whatever facet that I can do it in, I'm down.
Do you find that you do more musical theater or than non-musical theater? Or do you find it's split, or...
I find,
or are you like, is there a theater without music?
I kind of find myself gravitating towards musical theater, but I have done straight plays before. I've learned throughout the years in high school, like falling in love with the production of everything. Like, I've done backstage, I've done on stage. Mm-hmm. I love the production of theater, so I'll do whatever. Yeah.
That is, it's interesting. But we've talked about this a few times. On the show about people being involved in other aspects and being the tech side. I've admired that about you over the past few years too. Like, it's clear that you love theater and you're a collaborator and you just want to be a part of the team.
I just want to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that.
I want to be a part.
I feel that.
How can I help?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like too, and I find this at Kentwood, that there's not so much a bridge of like, oh, those are the actors. Those are the crew, you know, like we're there painting and acting, like whatever, like, and I love that. I love to be a part of that, just like you were saying.
Yeah, just want to be a part of it.
And it makes us, I think, more well-rounded.
And I think also because some of like the most meaningful relationships that I've had, especially through high school, was with the people I did theater and choir with. And I think that there's still that part of me that's like, this is where I can get some really quality, you know, friendships and relationships through theater and through sharing this love of acting and music.
Absolutely. I feel like that look, people can find this world of theater at any age, be it 3 years old to 103 years old. It you know, whatever, doesn't matter. You don't have to start at the beginning, like when you're a child. But I do find that when people are exposed to it as children, it really changes and affects their lives. And it forms bonds that we just kind of don't really have outside of theater. And it teaches us empathy and how to communicate so well. I'm such an advocate. I really feel like every young person needs to have this experience. Not so they'll be actors, but all the other things they'll learn.
And like talking about that and seeing how easily, especially growing up in Florida, where the arts was the first thing to get cut.
Oh,
it's just like, oh yeah, Florida does not care about the arts.
Really?
Pretty much. Yeah. Unless you go to like a special art school, at least in my county, I'll speak for Lake County. They did not care. The first thing that went to get budget cuts or anything was the arts. Even for example, elementary school, we had a music class, and I was like in second grade, and he was my favorite teacher, but they cut the class, and so, I was really disappointed, and I found myself in high school. The only reason why I went to school was so I can go to choir and theater, and I did well in school, so my parents or my teachers didn't have a reason for me not to go on like trips or anything, because my choir and theater teacher, they were very involved in our personal lives. We allowed them to be, and so my two teachers kind of became my other two moms in high school, who I still talk to and friends with on Facebook with. And yeah, like just doing those things really shaped who I was as a person. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I don't speak to very many of my teachers either, but I do speak to my theater teachers, all of them, no matter how long I had them. Yeah, that's so interesting. It surprises me about Florida, because Florida has such a great regional theater program, and they've got tons of arts and the performances with Disney, and
I know
that is shocking.
I know.
And also, well, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
At my school, it was very much so like, oh, we love our sports team, our football team, which sucked, but like our theater and choir and band were bringing in trophies and, getting the school money and all that stuff. Like we were doing the good stuff. Yeah.
It's, clearly it's people that don't understand, because when you're doing the arts, it affects music and acting. It affects parts of the brain that strengthen in science and mathematics. There's through music and dance, there's so many things that affect athletes that make them stronger, more agile. I mean, it blows my mind.
Yeah, like even like they say that, playing the piano can help you retain math.
Yes. Yeah.
So easily. Yeah.
Because it activates that part of the brain that does that. It helps with thinking outside the box and being creative and finding different solutions, but then also just the parts that are mathematical that are doing processes like that. It's amazing. Amazing. Well, okay. So you got into theater and into your life, and did that bring you out to LA, or how did you get out to
LA? Life circumstance happened, so I had to move in with family in LA.
Oh, okay.
I didn't join Kentwood until I think a year after I moved here.
And how did you hear about Kentwood?
I literally Googled theater auditions near me.
Yeah.
That's what I looked up. I looked up theater auditions near me. Little Mermaid was the show that I was auditioning for at the time. It was really out of the blue. Like I just decided that I miss theater, and I was going through a lot, and I feel like I was at a point ready to do it again. And then I just whipped up some really quick audition. I didn't get it cast, but I was stage manager for that show. But yeah, I just Googled theater auditions near me, and Kentwood is very close to my aunt and uncle's house, so I was like, well, might as well try here. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's literally what I did. Yeah.
Thank you, Yelp, and thank you, Google, for bringing us glory. That's amazing. And I also, so how did you go from auditioning for the show to being the stage manager?
Because I auditioned, and then I got an email saying that, I didn't get cast, but then I emailed, like, if you need a crew, anyone help backstage, I've AMSM'd once before. If you need anything like that, I'll gladly help. And then
And we reached out.
Catherine Rom was like, yeah, we need actually a stage manager. I was like, cool.
That's amazing.
I'll figure it out. So yeah, that's how it happened.
That's a pretty cool lesson too, Glory, about, you know, people wanting to get involved and getting to know people and getting to know new groups. Getting your face in front is like, hey, I'll help out. That's great.
Yeah, I just asked and it was given to me. So it was great.
I love that. So was Pippin your first onstage show there?
Yes, Pippin was my first onstage show at Kentwood, and I love Pippin. It was one of the greatest first, like, that experience of first time back on stage. I wouldn't have it any other way than the way it was with Pippin. I really wouldn't.
Yay. Yeah, it was pretty powerful. It was. We've talked about it a few times on this show. We've had a few people from the show on, including Allison, who's our director. There's something special about that show.
I know, and it's so weird because everyone who I've talked to who's been a part of that show has always said that there's just something about Pippin, and there really is something about Pippin.
There's something magical in it. I think in that we can relate to his journey because as people we go on the same journey of trying to find who we are and what is our purpose in this world. And I think too there's something about this particular cast that was just very special, and
I really think so.
Yeah, I mean, we just really bonded and stayed together.
I know. And usually with me, if I get cast in a show but I didn't get the role I want, I get pretty like butthurt about it. But with Pippin, I still listen to the soundtrack occasionally. Like, it still holds something very meaningful to me. Yeah, I loved Pippin.
Yeah,
I would do that show again in a heartbeat.
I am the same way, and I have to tell you, the other day I was giving myself a voice lesson, and I went through on my recording to click on the voice lesson that I do my warm-ups to, and I saw all of our Pippin rehearsal tracks, or like when we were learning songs and stuff, and I literally sat there and sang through them and listened, and I was like, oh. Yeah, it was pretty special. So then let's talk about, before we go on, I meant to say, San Gianfalo says that he loves you.
Oh, I love you too.
you have a fan. You have a fan of Sam G.
Yay.
Yeah. I love you too, by the way.
I love you.
He's like, whatever. I don't care. So you also are studying at Santa Monica College Theater, correct?
Yes, I am. I am studying college. But I am studying theater at Santa Monica. And I've also decided to tackle on this great new thing that I fell in love with, which is animals. And so I'm going to try and see how I feel about, getting a zoology degree and see where that takes me, because I realized in my adult life that I might not necessarily want, theater to be a career.
Oh, interesting.
I might not. I've discovered this, like that maybe, I'll always just be happy with either doing community theater, but I'm not the one to be like, I'm not going to turn down anything. Like, if someone wants to give me a job somewhere, I will take it. But, I'm just like discovering who I am again, and I found this new love, and I kind of want to see where it'll take me. I think I've been avoiding math my entire life, and so I'm going to do something that involves a lot of it, but yeah.
I think that's amazing. And I think sometimes we have felt pressured to narrow our scope. Oh, I can only focus on Stanislavski. And I think we don't want to limit ourselves as actors. We think we should encourage these other interests that we have, because it can only make us richer in our art and in our lives. So,
and it's like, I can do both.
You can do both. Like, why do you have to choose?
Do both.
Yeah.
Both is an option.
It is. It is, absolutely. So zoology, what about, what brought you there? Your love for animals, yes, but.
And just, I also found myself really, just before this pandemic happened, really wanting to make a difference in just Earth in general, and like preserving this planet that we live on. And one of the best ways to do that is the conservation of animals is one of the best ways to save our environment and help them out, because they know more and understand more than we do about how all of this Earth system works. We're top dog. They understand it better. And so I feel like with the more research that I'm doing, environmental studies, that's kind of one of the biggest routes to get to a better place, you know, for them and for us too.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that process in your life as well. I'm so curious.
Yeah.
And I want in because I love animals too. So you're going to be my ticket in with all the cool ones. They're all cool. I love everything. So let's get in though into the nitty gritty of the acting. What's your process? How do you start when you get a role that you're working on for anything, class, a new monologue, a show, whatever?
Well, it really depends. So like I have done the musical Heathers before, and I played Veronica Sawyer, who is the main character. And what I did with that is I watched the movie religiously.
Oh, gosh.
I took a lot of notes on Veronica and her nuances and her character, and also read the book. So depending on what the show is, I kind of go to the source material and see how they have changed the source material into the character in the show, and how can I kind of blend all those elements. Like in the musical, it doesn't really, actually what I say in the movie, it doesn't really touch on how nerdy Veronica is. But in the musical and in the book, it really does show that this girl was a loser. Like they painted her as a loser, and then lightning struck and she became this popular chick. So to me, it was about bringing that nerdiness, making that so prevalent, even though she's trying really, really hard to like be this cool, popular chick, but she's just this nerd, and then something happened to her. And now all of these other things around her with crazy boyfriends and everything and school bombings and all of that is happening around her too. Yeah. But I also like to do is kind of make a background story for the character prior to what we see in the script. That's also kind of what I like to do. So I feel like that the character I'm playing becomes a little bit more well-rounded, because now I know what this person has been through before this moment onward.
Yeah, I think that's great. I loved working on that with you when we were working on Pippin together, and there was a lot of room to really be creative, and I found that to be, but it's so fun, right? And it seems like, why are you doing that? No one will ever know your backstory, but it really does affect how you are on stage in the scenes that people do know.
I'm sitting. My lighting is funny. I'm sorry. I'll do it in a bit. But people don't realize, like, developing that character, it does something in your head. Like, it makes you feel like you're a complete person.
Yeah.
Now that you have this whole rounded person, this is what they've been through, this is the kind of characters that they have, and they're reacting this way to these things happening because of this prior incident that happened in their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. It really does. It feeds and it helps us to identify what we're actually wanting in this story that we're telling, and how we can get it from other people, because we have the whole givens, right? The whole backstory. That's great. I love that. Are there any particular roles that you're just dying to do, or?
I have like a list, but my top 5 is Natalie Goodman from Next to Normal.
Wow.
Oh, yes. I know she's her story is so, like, the whole family is really tragic, but I know her story is really tragic, but she sings some really fun stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like the main reason I was like, she sings some awesome stuff.
Yeah. Great songs.
And then Eliza from Hamilton, because
yes,
it's Eliza. And well, actually, with Hamilton, I would be anything. Put me in the ensemble.
Tree number 4. Yes, please.
I will literally press a button for the lights to go. I would do anything to be a part of that production.
Ditto. Anything.
Anything. I would do literally anything.
Yeah.
You want me to hand out playbills? I got it.
Got
it. I'll do anything for you for the show.
Yeah.
And then Jo March from Little Women, who I have had kind of the hardest time, dealing with, because it's such a time period piece. And kind of to get into the diversity route, it almost feels like hard for me to get anywhere in that show. I did that show in high school, and I wanted to be Jo March then, and I got Audrey II. For those who are not familiar with the show, not Audrey II, Rodrigo II. So Jo March is a writer, and in one of the songs, you see her character basically come to life, and you can either double cast it. So one of the sisters plays one of the historical characters, or what a lot of people do, they just cast historical characters as other people. And I was a historical character, and when I auditioned for it again, I got the same character. So it kind of made, like, years later, so it kind of made me feel like, maybe there's not a place for me here.
Do you think people are getting stuck in the idea that this is a historical piece, and so we have to cast it white? like let's just call it what it is.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it. And I feel like, and it's one of those things, like, is that me copping out for not doing well auditions? Mm-hmm. Or is that actually the case? And that happens with me in a lot of roles. It's like, is it me, or is it,
interesting,
or is it how this would look on stage in this time period, in this time frame, or with this group of people, and it's that constant battle between, did I not audition well, or is it because I'm Black? And there's no answer. There's not really a way to get an answer for that.
Right. That is an interesting thing to think about, something that having to deal with as an actress of color, as a Black woman going. I mean, that's a whole other layer, because as actors in general, we have our insecurities where we go. I mean, just actors, we all the time. Was that bad?
Yes.
Or did I do that wrong? Was this was this a dumb choice? Like, I try and teach my kids all the time, leave your judge at the door. Like, we can't think like that. There's no right or wrong, but here's the problem, is that I can say that, and people who audition for me know that, well, Sam's great. She's not going to judge me, whatever. But other people are judging. So that's why we have these insecurities. But this is a whole other layer.
Yeah, and it's like, I like to think that I know when I did poorly on an audition or did well, I feel like I know that. I feel like once I'm done, I can be like, maybe I didn't hit those notes as well as I could have,
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it's I think about, was that good? Did I do a good job? And then on top of that, it's like, am I going to get called back for this role that is traditionally seen as a white character?
Do you think, let me ask you this. Have there been multiple roles where you've been like, where you have felt that was a good audition? Yeah. So it's not like you walked out going,
yeah, no, it's
not
my
best.
Like that, I'm like, I just put me in the ensemble. I get it. Put me somewhere. But if I walk out and I'm like, I did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I feel like, well, I always felt like theater was more inclusive than I guess the Hollywood world was. Mm-hmm. But as getting older, it still doesn't seem as inclusive as it still could be.
Right. Like, it may be more, but more over 1% is 5%.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily
Like, it doesn't
mean it's like
yeah.
70% better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And so while we're here, because I know we were talking about your dream roles, which we can get back to, but let's talk about that. I feel like we don't have to be married to history. Meaning, you brought up Hamilton. It's a great example. We know we have drawings of what these men and women look like. We know their history and their ethnicity, but yeah, it didn't matter when we watched that show. I was not pulled out of it going, which one's Alexander Hamilton? Right.
Exactly.
Like, so why do you think, let me ask you this, why do you think we're so tied to it, and how do we break from that?
Why do I think we're tied to it because it's how it's always been. You know what I mean? Like, the mold still hasn't been broken enough.
Gotcha.
So it's how it's always been. It's how it was presented to me as an individual.
Right.
I think a lot of it also comes with, like, it's also how it was presented as the original cast.
Right.
And then how we break it is just not caring. Just cast who you think is best for the role, which, of course, and that's the thing with this. It's like, I might have not been the best for the role. That's fine. That's fair. But it still is an issue within itself that I feel like, did I not get cast for this because of the color of my skin?
Yeah.
It's
interesting though to me, because I've been doing a lot of research, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and in all areas, but in theater as well, where sometimes we can't get somebody like you. How you get better, how you get to be the best for the role, is by experience. But if you're not getting the experience, how do you get better? How do you become the best?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I know that there were examples in my growing up where I was learning, where I had room for growth. I know there were examples, we all have that, because there was always a time where we were not the best, where we had to learn, right? So why are we okay to give certain people an opportunity for growth?
And not others.
And not others, right? Because I think, like, as a director, and I understand that it's a little unfair because I'm also a teacher. So I know that gives me an advantage of working with actors and bringing them up, because I have that skill set and I have that education. But I've also been directing for a long time, and I don't necessarily think it's a requirement to also be a teacher to help somebody develop and grow into a role. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you're taking a risk no matter what, unless you absolutely know the actor and know that they're going to be brilliant.
Right.
So why not take the risk with people, so it looks like it's a diverse cast? That's, I guess, what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and then also, I was just thinking right now, is like, 4 out of my top 5 dream roles are all white female characters. All of them. Besides one. Because it's Eliza,
Right.
Oh,
that's interesting, actually, as well. Because Eliza's just like neither. She's whatever. So she's a woman of color. Interesting. So, oh, wow. Okay. So now let me ask you this. Do you think that is because there are not enough roles that are grabbing, that are even out there that grab you? Or do you think it's just these are the ones that you identify with, or a mixture of both?
I think it's a mixture of both. Because what I would actually love to see more is musicals like, you know, Next to Normal, where it's just about a family that is just diverse because it can be diverse.
Right. Well, next
you know
to
what I mean?
yeah, because Next to Normal is not written. It has nothing to do with a person's skin color or their ethnicity, where they're historically from. It has nothing to do with that at all.
I would love to see more like just person of color stories like that, where it's just about this family and they just so happen to be this mixed race, whatever, all over the place family. Whereas I feel like a lot of these Black stories are being told are always just, you know, tragic or you know, Raised in the Sun or something like that, where it's like we need more modern stories about us, you know. You don't always have to go back to this, you know, slave times or being maids or anything like that. We need more stories here and now about us living our lives here and now in the world, because we are, you know.
So I want to say something interesting though, because I noticed we both just did this. We just we thought of and referred to Next to Normal as a musical that is that character is white, but she's not. She's not anything. She could be whatever. So why did we do that?
Because it was presented to us that way. Right,
but why did we go just because the original cast was like that?
I don't know. That's just
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that I really think it's because of how. That's why I said earlier about how like the cast looks or the way that it was presented to us, because when we think of that musical, we think of Aaron Tveit, you know, Natalie Dunn, Alice Ripley. We think of those characters and those people as those characters.
And I think I find it that this is a problem with this is why we've been talking about this and having this discussion. I think it's a problem with the system, with racism, which is that our default is white. Unless we're telling the very specific Black story, which is also not the Black story.
You know, like
right.
Which is, those stories are important to tell, but it's also really important to have just normal, you know, stories about kids of today or kids during a time when that wasn't prevalent in that way.
Yeah. Or just a story about love or mental health or losing a child. Like I'm thinking of Rabbit Hole right now. Like that could happen to anybody. You know, absolutely. Oh, this is I'm going to start thinking of plays and musicals in a whole new light. We were talking about this before because we had said, you know, there are definitely shows that deal with that aspect. Like for instance, Good People. One of the things that has to happen is that they're in a mixed couple. It has to be that way. That's what they're talking about, you know. But anything outside of that, you know, I think remove this assumption that it has to come from any sort of race or ethnicity. Let me talk to you about, while we're on the subject of diversity, let me talk to you about what do you think about the need and strength of diversity in theater just in general? How do you think it will help, or why do you think it's necessary?
I just think it has to be necessary because theater presents, the way that I view theater, the way that I feel like theater was presented to me is that it was for everyone. Everyone is welcome here. You know? It doesn't matter about your sexuality or whatever. You are welcome. You're that weird kid. You're welcome here in theater. And for me to feel welcome, I'm my race. I'm me, you know? And I think that just has to be the case, is that theater is supposed to be this welcoming, awesome place where you're supposed to find yourself and meet all of these great people. And that's how it was presented to me. And that's how I felt when I first discovered theater, and to really hone that in, it's like you have to open these roles and have to open these parts to people.
Yeah. I also, like you brought up very briefly, sexuality too, and I feel like we have to understand diversity in all aspects too, that we're dealing with the sexual identity, gender, non-gender. And also, you know, we had Lindsay and Jeremy on, and we talked about able-bodied and you know, I think it's exactly what you said. It's that encompassing of everyone. And I find we talked about this when my brother was on too. It's interesting because I feel like on stage, it tends to be more open. We're trying to be more open and accepting. But I still feel like in the audience, it's an elite sport.
Yep. It, honestly,
you know, like it's not necessarily accessible to everyone.
no, if I lived in New York right now and say pandemic wasn't happening and wanted to see a show, I can't afford to see a show.
No.
You know how expensive tickets are?
Yeah. I'm not
What?
saying a show.
What? No.
No.
And even shows like Hamilton, like,
yeah,
I can't go see Hamilton.
No.
No, it's yeah, it is an elite sport. It really is.
Yeah. Do you find, and how was your, let me ask you this real quickly. How was your training as a child? Did you do, because you said you're a singer, did you do voice lessons? Did you do dance lessons? Did you do any of that?
I did none of those things as a kid. Because I was a defiant child who didn't want to do anything her mom suggested. My mom was like, you should take ballet and do all of these things. And I was like, no, I want to play soccer and be like the boys. And now I'm like, Glory, you should take at least just one ballet class. It would be so helpful now.
It also would have helped with your soccer.
I know, like,
just
like
throwing that out there.
But no, I didn't really start taking singing seriously until middle school and joining choir. And then I was like, I really like reading music. And so in high school, I started doing voice lessons here and there, did competitions and stuff like that. But I never had any formal training or anything as a kid. I just kind of figured it out through school.
Yeah. I feel like that's another reason why it's so important, because I feel like acting is an elite sport in that aspect too. I also didn't have the ability. It's very expensive. I didn't have the ability to take all the dance class, so I was definitely at a disadvantage when I moved to New York to do musical theater, and then or voice. And it was the same thing. Like, I was really blessed and lucky. I had a great program in school, so I was able to get. We didn't have dance, but I was able to get some singing and stuff. So it's really interesting to think about how it's. Actors are the weird ones. We're also the ones that get along with everybody. It's also the place to go when you're different or you're odd, or, it's definitely the place, we don't care about who you're sleeping with and your sexuality, like, bring it all. We don't care, it was just this great melting pot, but yeah, it's also.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Isn't that interesting?
It's very expensive. And it sucks because I always felt like I was a disadvantage because I never had all those things as a kid.
Me too.
Even when we could afford it when I was super young, by the time that I was like 8, 9, or 10, we couldn't. And so I always felt like, especially with the dance aspect, like just completely at a disadvantage.
Well, and let's be real, you have to have a lot of money if you want to do all the things that people are doing.
Yes. And it's like now with theater, you almost kind of have to be a triple threat. Like you have to be able to dance, sing, and act. Even if you're not doing a musical, you still have to like be equipped to dance, sing, and act.
For some reason, yeah. But
you're right. Some reason.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You have to be a triple threat. There's no.
So
yeah.
But we're gonna have to wrap up here really quickly. But I wanted to cover a couple things. And I think we've hit on the power of theater and how it's influenced your life. But do we have any words of why we think it's important for our community, for people, our society to have theater around?
I just think the arts in general makes us who we are as a person. Mm-hmm. Whether it's as a big deal as it is to us, or something super small like to my brother who is an athlete. But the arts is who we are. Our music that we listen to is so encompassed in who we are as human beings, and the movies that we love to watch. The arts just make us people. The arts, I literally think the arts make the world go round. Especially during this pandemic. The first thing people run to is music, movies.
Yeah.
How can I go see something? How can I go see I don't have any concerts anymore. I feel like we'd be in a worse place as people, as human beings without the arts.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. There's no world without it.
I feel like you can see this direct correlation. We cut all the programs in schools, and now we've lost empathy as a society, and now we have anti-maskers. So I'm just saying, when we make it out of the apocalypse, put arts back in schools. Please.
I mean,
please.
You like, honestly, like, it helps kids do better in school because it gives them a reason to go somewhere. Like that weird odd kid that we keep kind of mentioning, like that kid is bullied all the time. That kid feels safe in their theater and choir classes.
Yeah.
They go to school and do well in school because of those
classes. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I did. I didn't care less about school, but I went and did well because I wanted to make my teachers proud, and I wanted to go do, trips that my choir did without giving my mom or my teachers any reason not to take me. It's like, do you see these grades? My grades are awesome. I need to go on this trip.
Right.
That's
great. Yeah. I'm horribly shy, and I know everyone's gonna be like, really? But no, I really am, and I have anxiety. I get anxiety around people, and that, what you're talking about, that was totally me for school. Like that could get me calmed down and thinking like, oh, at least I've got my actor friends.
Yeah.
And think
like my days in high school could be just the worst day, but I'm like, I have rehearsal at the end of the day. I get to go to rehearsal.
Yes, 100%. So before we leave, do you have a favorite experience of yours, or favorite role, or favorite show, or something that you've done that just has really stuck with you all these years? If I'm asking you to choose between your babies, you don't have to answer.
I think one of the shows that I think has impacted me the most that I've done, besides Pippin, has to be In the Heights.
Oh.
I did In the Heights my sophomore year of high school. It was my first, like, nameable theater show that I've done, because everything else I did prior was people at church made their own shows and stuff like that. And that was the show that I was like, I need to do this every year.
Oh, I love it.
And In the Heights still holds a really special place in my heart. Like, I just randomly auditioned because my choir teacher was like, we need people to come and audition. And I was like, I like to sing, I'll do this. And I was in the ensemble. I had one line, and I was proud of my one "Here Comes You Snobby" line. I was proud of it. And ever since then, like in high school, we did 3 shows a year. My junior and senior year, I was a part of all 3 shows one way or another. Whether I was in tech or whether I was on stage, like it was the perfect escape for me,
I love it.
Yeah, In the Heights to this day, it has like a really soft spot in my heart, and so does Lamar Miranda, for countless other reasons. We'll talk about him later, but
yes.
Yeah, In the Heights was that show that really sparked the fire, and that made me go, I love this. I need to have more of this.
Yeah.
This is really cool. How can I learn how to do lights? How can I learn how to do backstage stuff? Like, when can I learn how to do this? Like, why do you guys do this? Why do we say all of these different things in theater? And that was the show that really got me like, I feel like this is where I need to be.
That's wonderful. I love that show. Oh, that's great.
I love In the Heights.
Do you have a crazy debacle that happened at any point in time? You do not need to name names, but anything, or maybe you were in a show that was a debacle all in its own.
Well, I was props master my senior year for The Crucible, and I just remember that I don't remember any of the characters' names in The Crucible. To be honest, I know that's such like a big iconic like play, but I really can't remember anyone's names. But I know one of our leads, I think it was John Proctor.
That's John Proctor's the lead.
It was our last day of, or it was our last day or second to last day of Tech Week. He came on stage with the script, and I remember my theater teacher in high school was no joke. I love Baxter. She's super young, so she was like cool with us. I remember watching him walk on stage and being like, oh, we're done for. She was so mad.
Did he get off book?
He did eventually get off book.
But by the time you opened?
Yes.
Okay, good.
But he came on stage and I was like, this is it.
Wow.
And we did not. And luckily for me, I was just props master. I was like, I got all my shit to go. Wow. I got my handcuffs, my noose, everything is painted, everything is good to go.
Wow. That's a debacle. But you know what? He came out on top in the end.
He did, and it was a good play.
There you
Everyone was happy, but I was like, "This is it. We're not going to see tomorrow after Grant walks on stage with his script."
With his script, my word! Oh my gosh! Yay! Well, thank you so much for hanging out. This has been great. Fun. Yay! Well, I just love gabbing. Great conversation. It's always so much fun. Thank you. All right, everybody, we're gonna say good night. We'll see you Sunday at 7. Missed you last Sunday, but we watched an excellent production of Good People at Torrance Theater. If you missed it, sorry. So we'll see you Sunday at 7. Take care.